wanted to trade in Nigeria. It was done during the military regime. I actually think it was during Obasanjo's first regime when he took over. That's a good thing. That we are able to have conversations about terms of trade and relationship about not just coming here and having a red carpet and just exploiting the resources, actually just being a raw material facilitator to industries that are based in the developed world. And even for that little bit that you do, you have 100% profit. I think it is high time we started having those conversations about must we mine timely and what we require is technical expertise with 100% profit going overseas in this day and age. Maybe that is the conversation we need to have, and maybe have a perspective about the role of public-private partnerships. So, the same Obasanjo during the second regime, and this is when I was coming in, banned the importation of paracetamol, sugar, toothpaste, all those things. And he says, as long as I can demonstrate that Nigeria industry can do it, I know they may not be efficient, but we are not going to import because I know the implication of jobs. We are going to give them time to create that efficiency. And sure enough, I spent the next 3 years, because I was importing toothpaste, I spent the next 3 years building a factory. And by the time I left, I had put in an extra 350 jobs in that economy. I think that is good. Are we efficient? I think toothpaste was costing a little more, but I think it was a price worth paying for the Nigerians, for the jobs that were created in the marketplace and removing those fellows from the streets. Agriculture. As everyone reduces and food itself gets alternative uses, the price of food is not only going to rise, but farming is going to become increasingly strategic. Food supply will easily be the next big thing, in my view. This is an area in which governments across Africa have to figure out how to drive PPPs. In Kenya, we have fertile land, for instance, along the Delta, Tana River Delta, but you know what has happened? Whenever an initiative, particularly whether Kenyan individuals or companies want to do that, we have politicians who are saying, no, this is our people, this is our land, this is our native land, and oftentimes nothing happens to that land. We almost look like we are happier when nothing is happening, provided it is not done by a guy from across the river. Maybe it's high time we had conversations that changes this, because in the same way, we had a headline not too long ago where Qatar farmers wanted to do farming in the same delta. Did you hear what I said? Qatar farmers. Qatar is a desert. But we had Qatar farmers who wanted to farm in that delta. And they had a red carpet welcome. We were talking about it then, meeting very high echelons of government. Maybe it's high time we started taking a lot more pride in ourselves and what we are able to do, particularly on things like farming, and just create that enabling environment, formalize a policy where even me, I can do farming if that is what I want to do. Trade amongst African countries is dismal. I appreciate it is growing. While we must open up the continent's infrastructure to build trade, we must do more to remove other barriers to trade by enlarging our trading blocks. One of the questions I wanted to ask, like I will still ask Mr. Moicha, is it's good, I know AU supports ECOWAS, which is very good. I know AU supports EAC, and indeed supports Commerce and SADC. Isn't it time we actually started talking and really driving a common market for Africa? Because even with Africa, we are still smaller than the Chinese in terms of having a common market. So why don't we drive and are very excited about this African community with 100 million people? The reality is that the whole of Africa as a common market is still smaller than the Chinese. It's probably, from a population standpoint, the size of India. So maybe we need to have more serious conversation about a common market for Africa. And in fact, I pray that in the next 20 years, that we can actually drive from Kenya, make it 2 or 3 days, but drive to the next economic hub in West Africa, called Lagos, in a free highway, because I know just the production of such an initiative creates so much economic activity and employs so many people along the way. I hope that is something that we can actually see happening. Few points. Tourism. There's potential for lots of informative thinking in this sector. Again, the territorial issues hinders us in this regard. A foreign tourist has to pay for visas in Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Tanzania, etc., making the whole process cumbersome and expensive. Also, we oftentimes lack a positioning plan for tourism. and end up inviting everybody, including guys who pollute the environment. Perhaps we can take a lesson from Rwanda, who having realized that they had precious products in the way of the mountain gorillas, only allow a specific number of people to view them per day, but they charge appropriately. The price they charge compensates for the thousands who would have been flocking there and messing the environment. What about labor? While Africa may be lacking qualified labor in some areas, we usually have pockets of excess labor within surrounding countries. For example, Sudan and Congo may currently have a huge deficit of teachers. It is not difficult to imagine a country like Congo importing mathematics teachers from France, which they do. Yet we can create a situation where they can easily turn to East Africa, Kenya particularly, and get those same teachers at probably less a price they will pay for the same teachers from France. Finally, I think we need to drive the Africa brand and let more pride to our story. Our brand is very significantly driven by identity and emphasizing the key feature that makes us unique. In the same vein, we also need to drive our national and African identities better. If you check many of the countries that have moved forward, they have some common ingredients like language, food, clothing. I am proud of my Nigerian brothers because when they are told to show up in the national dress, you cannot confuse them from a mile away. That is something that brings people together, and language etc. It's a high time we also started looking at the softer issues that helps us bring us together, like Swahili in East Africa, etc. Because otherwise we are still going to continue being a loose coalition of nations that only accidentally happen to be struggled together. In fact, if you look at Tanzania, a country which was long ago united by language, because if you go to Tanzania, a Tanzanian from Lake Victoria talks in the same way, almost with the same accent, from a Tanzanian in Dar es Salaam or Tanga. Are we then surprised that Tanzania is actually the most stable country in East Africa, where you never hear things like tribal clashes? So, ladies and gentlemen, the move towards better public-private partnerships requires radical innovative thinking and will be propelled by incentives that the media can also participate in and help to provide. We must continue to raise the role of dynamic and free press in our continent, and also embrace the fact that for us to move on to the next level, we need each other, and actually have serious conversations about how we can enlarge the market, how we can facilitate organizations moving from one country to another. We've seen, and I think I'm proud of the Nigerian banks, which are, I think, the biggest Nigerian bank. I can see my brother from UBA, and I think UBA is in probably 15, 20 countries in Africa. That is the way, and we must embrace that, because by so doing, we are actually going to enhance this trade question amongst ourselves. People do not know how they can trade with Nigeria. Now we know. You even have a CEO there that you can ask, how can I do business in Nigeria? And there are many people who probably will not know. But not only will he tell you how you can do it, he'll tell you how to open a bank account in Nigeria, sitting in the office. So we must remove the pecking mentality and look at a way in which we can embrace each other, our Africanness, and help to drive a situation in Africa where we can stand a chance of competing favorably with the rest of the world. I thank you very much for listening. Thank you.